Welcome to our Natural Habitat Adventures webinar today, Botswana, the heart of wildest Africa. We have two presenters today that I would like to introduce you to. The first is Tudo Muklatsi, and Tudo was named the best safari guide on the planet in Outside Magazine's 2014 Travel Awards. He had the privilege of growing up in the superb wildlife areas, I should say, of Botswana, where his father was involved in tourism and conservation work. This exposure fostered a childhood love of the wild. And since becoming a safari guide, Tudo has also become an accomplished photographer, leading photography trips throughout Southern Africa in addition to his regular safari guiding work. No doubt we will be seeing some of his photos today. Lemmy Guest is our other presenter today. Lemmy was born in the small southwest Botswana village of Kojani and raised in Maun, the gateway to the Okavango Delta. He spent school holidays in the bush looking after the family livestock alongside his brother. And in addition to his expertise as an expedition leader, Lemmy is a certified walking guide and tracker and has been a private guide, camp guide during recent years in Linyati, Okavango, and Kalahari regions. His interests include travel, birding, meeting people, and photography. And his writing appears in the Explorer Travel magazine. So we are delighted to have Lemmy and Tudo with us today. And with that, I will turn it over to the two of you. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. This is Lemmy Guest speaking. Just to give you a brief on the northern part of the country, where that's where we get a lot of pristine areas of the Okavango Delta, also in the Linyati. Those are the areas that many of our departures go through. So the Okavango Delta itself has got a kind of big biodiversity. As we said, there's about 1,300 plants, about 71 species of fish, 33 different species of amphibians, 64 different species of reptiles, and 444 species of birds, and 122 different species of mammals. So all those, if you ever get a chance to travel into Botswana, depending on the season, which I'll be mainly focusing on the dry part, just to show you the difference between the dry and the wet season, which Tudo will cover as we go along with the webinar. So Okavango actually works in a different way. It doesn't go along with our rainy season. The water that comes in with the rains are not enough to keep it going. So normally, our dry season, which is our winter months, that's when the Okavango Delta gets filled up with water, which attracts a lot of game just along the seasonal floodplains and also in the permanent floodplains, where you get a lot of hippos, elephants, and also predators that come through, also in the following up on their prey species. And so Okavango Delta is fed by two major rivers from Angola that come from the Benguela Plateau, and then we've got the Okavango and then the Linyati, which is a different system to the Okavango, which goes along with the seasons in the countries. So for the Linyati, when it's dry, you can really tell it's a dry period. As for our dry season in the Okavango Delta, you get lots of water flowing through. So that's just one of the months when the floods are quite high within the Okavango Delta, which sort of pushes animals off into the boundaries, into the seasonal Philippines. That's where they tend to spend most of their time feeding on the large grass that comes in once we get the floods come in into the northern part of the country. And then this one here, it's mainly just to show you the other system, which is the Linyati, that covers the Savuti. And then the Linyati also fed by one of the rivers from the Angolan highlands, Benguela Plateau, that's the Kwanda, which flows northeasterly of the country. And then the backflow of it, you get the Savuti. So this is basically just an image showing the dry season where you cannot even see any drop of water anyway. And then all the depressions that you see, the white patches, that's what gets filled up with water during the rainy season. And then dry season, the water dries out, and then you get that dry riverbed that attracts a lot of game, and then they go into the permanent swamps, which would be the Linyanti swamps for them to go and drink. And then that's where you get like high concentration of elephants being in the Linyanti, which is considered to have the second largest population of elephants in the country. And then the first one is obviously Chobe, which also we cover when we start our trips. Coming from Zambia, we have to do a cruise in the Chobe River, which is somehow connected to the Linyanti. And then we spend more time into the Linyanti area exploring the mixed through the mixed woodland, the Mopani scrubland. But then those Mopanis, we look at them, they've got stunted growth, and they attract a lot of elephants that move between the Linyanti and Namibia on the other side, just to change their feeding habits. And then with that, having just one permanent water source, we get our predators, which are territorial, just hanging along the fringes of the Linyanti swamps to follow up on their prey species. And then also one thing to take into consideration with the dry season is that we get a lot of migratory birds, which when you come through that period, you won't find as many compared to when you go into the wet season. That's when you get a lot of birds coming from intra-Africa or Arctic migration. But otherwise, also numbers of elephants tend to pick up around that time when the water is very, very low. And then the Linyanti sort of provides good areas for painted wild dogs or painted wolves that like it, where into those areas where that is quite open for them to chase their prey. And then for game drivers, actually it improves visibility as compared to when it's wet. Tracking also can be challenging there, that you get a lot of grass growing, but during the dry season, it's all bare. Once you come into the area, it makes you feel like there's nothing that is alive around those areas. So everything looks like it's all dead, because most of the vegetation that we get as well it's deciduous woodland. So once you go through the dry period, everything tends to lose their leaves. And so that's a typical picture of what you get totally within the dry season. This would be a water hole that would withhold water for some time throughout the dry period. And that's the only place that elephants, buffaloes, even zebras that come into the area would go in and drink. And then most of the time, whoever gets there first will try and push off the other ones and then make sure that they get enough water for the day, and then move on into the woodland where they're going to graze. And that's also the time when you get elephants covering big distance because they have to change their diet. And babies, they tend to suffer from all those long distances that they walk through. So it gives us a chance to see some interaction with other predators like hyenas that will target all the weak ones that are mobiling around looking for either food or water, and then they get taken out. So you tend to get a lot of interaction amongst predators and their prey species. Lions against buffaloes, dogs going up after the impalas that are beginning of the dry season in rutting season. So males tend to concentrate on what's going on to try and chase more females so they can get them into their territories, and then dogs take the chance to take those males that are not paying attention to what's going on around them. And then the movements of other predators that are territorial is also doesn't happen as much because their scent markings tend to last longer as compared to during the rainy season, where it gets diluted by the rain, and then they hang around the areas where there's lots of prey species, which they will take it as their core, the core of their territory. And then being a guide also, I've been inspired by becoming a photographer, which that's one important thing to do in the wild, just to capture memories that will stay there forever. So also say thanks to technology that has come up, that you can take as many pictures as you can and then pick up the best ones. So in our travels, we get different type of people. That some are pro photographers, some are amateur photographers, some they just do it for the love of the the wild. But then dealing with people like that, we have to come in with a different approach to each and every one of them, depending on who you're dealing with at that point in time. So for the pro photographers, it's mainly the anticipation of wildlife, where they're going, so you can position and then have a safe distance for them to take their perfect shot. And then with amateur photographers, when you're dealing with them, it's just to try and advise them on the settings of cameras, depending on the light, if we have that light. And also the good thing with our dry season is that we get a lot of sunlight, so you don't get cloudy days. It's mainly light, or most of the time. So then light becomes important when you're taking your pictures around. So you've got to have a focus and everything, and then also look for features like the eyes, if they are open or closed. So those are things that often I'd advise people that are clients that I drive on board, that they have to look for that for action, when to expect a perfect shot of eyes open, especially when the animal has to yawns, and by the time it closes its mouth, that's the time when they open, the eyes pop out. So I would advise them a lot on that. And then there's just a series of pictures that I've taken over the safaris that I've conducted in the northern part of the country. If you look at this leopard here, you can see that the focus is more on the face. If you go along the body, it becomes blurry, which that depends on the focal point where you focus is on your object that you're trying to capture. And at the end of the day, as we all know, photography is an art. So it just depends on what you want as a photographer at the end of the day, where you can play around with the light, have the light in front of your the object that you're trying to photograph, or have it on the back for the backlight. And then here, the main thing here, obviously, that's some interaction that you don't get to see quite often. So whenever you get the opportunity, you've got to use it. But here we're looking at the contrast of the surrounding. There's a composition within this picture where you get that cotton wool grass with that white color in it, and then a bit of green grass. This is like in the early days of the dry season, where the grass is slowly dying out. And then if you come back here in about like 2 or some months later, you find that everything is all yellow in color, just waiting to get more water once the rain starts, which the northern part of the country is part of the Kalahari Sand Basin, and it's more like a thirst land, so we always need water up there. Then also that would be like to use the opportunity of the light would be like the golden hour, which is known to a lot of people that come in. They always want to have that moment, which would be in the morning or late afternoon before the sun sets. So you get that sort of golden light, which can also be perfect to pictures depending on what you're trying to capture. And that's one of the iconic animals that we get. This is some places up in Vic Falls where we start our departures mainly. This is just a place. You can see it's at a low point or low ground or ground level, because they're so relaxed. They're not scared of people. So you're just taking the picture to try and show the difference with the wet season, which this year we had some abnormal rains, and then the mopane continued to bloom instead of dying out, as you can see there, but the grass is all gone. And then, like I was saying, that dry season actually provides a lot of action. So these are times where you get other predators like painted wolves, denning. So you come through those times, and some other places like the Linyanti and some parts of the Okavango Delta where it's not too wet, you can have that opportunity to get to see babies, which are also, I mean, any time of the year, depending on what you're looking for, you're most likely to come across anything around in the world. You can never say never once you're in the bush, just to have that in mind. And then animals with like deceptive coloration, which can also sometimes be difficult to photograph. Looking at the surrounding that they live in, the grass, you have to try and play out with contrast to try and have the object being that you're photographing to be mainly more exposed. And then also with that, what the activities that we do, like during the day, despite taking photographs. The dry season provides opportunities also to view the African skies. For a lot of people, for a lot of our clients that travel with us, they come from well-developed areas or cities where they don't get a chance to see what's up in the sky. But I'm sure quite a few were fortunate to see the eclipse yesterday. But with us, once you're back, well, you're in Botswana, you get that chance to see the constellations up in the southern hemisphere, which you don't get to see from the northern hemisphere. And then you can see the Southern Cross, and then sometimes the northern hemisphere constellations. So this was also trying to anticipate on this picture the movements of the female when she was being chased by the male, the dominant male in the area. Trying to focus on the one on the foreground, and then the male slightly becoming blurred in the picture, but also trying to keep that eye out. So time to play around with also with the curves around the areas of some of the camps in the southern part of the delta where it's much drier. Again, a picture of the eye there, bit of contrast, male looking across the plain to try and scan around, see what's up there. So this is actually just some of the few things to touch when you go into a trip that you're willing to take pictures that you want to capture and then show to your friends once you're done with the trip. And then for the wet season part, I'll hand over to Tuto to take it on from there.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Tuto Mutlatse. I'm just the other guy who's doing the second part of the program. This is an image, thanks to NASA, taken from a satellite image of the Okavango Delta coming into the wet season. Okay, so you can see the delta there is in flood on the northwestern side and part of the Makgadikgadi salt pans. But I'm just going to touch in general on Botswana. I think it's an amazing story. It's a love story. The first president of the country. For those of you who haven't seen the movie that's just come out very recently, it's entitled The United Kingdom, and it's on the love story of Botswana, or Botswana prior to its independence was known as Botswanaland, and then with it coming into independence in 1966. So for some of those guests out there who haven't seen it, do pick it up if you come across it. It's called the United Kingdom. It just goes to the early parts of Botswana coming into independence and the whole love story between Sir Seretse Khama I and the young Scottish lass, Lady Ruth Williams. A phenomenal story. I will give you more insight on Botswana and its political situations and everything else. An amazing story as a whole. We're going to focus in a little bit on one of the most unique delta systems in the world, which is the Okavango Delta system, which is one of the big highlights and an area that's very, very close to my heart in terms of the huge amount of biodiversity that is housed within the Okavango and within the Makgadikgadi region. Okay, and we start off with the wet season. What is it, the wet season? I mean, Botswana is the first land. It's dry out there. It's barren. It's dusty, and the sun bakes down on the earth, and animals during the dry season have it quite hard, although game viewing is really, really good during the dry season. But then all of a sudden, thunder, lightning, and huge amounts of rain fall to the surface, and it's the sudden awakening of this massive thirst land where all of a sudden water has become more precious than gold. Flowers and grass roots starts to shoot, and a lot of our herbivores tend to sort of coincide the dropping of lambs with the first rains just as the green grasses start to emerge. So there's an abundance of youngsters that are the impalas have young, the zebras have young, the wildebeest, the warthogs, they're all out there to get into this greenery that's just arrived due to these thirst land. And when we talk about the rains, it's not that it's raining all day, it's late afternoon thunder showers, convectional rain, 2 or 3 hours, and then it clears up, it's nice and soft. Great temperatures, great weather, and a perfect time to get out on the Land Rover and go and explore places like the Kalahari and the Okavango, which will then give you the opportunity of seeing some amazing wildlife. This is a picture of the Delta after the big rains. 3 months later, all of a sudden, this alluvial fan comes into action as the hydraulics of the Delta system coming in from the highlands of Angola comes through the Okavango River, hits the northern part of Namibia, that funny arm of Namibia. If you looked at a map of Namibia, you'd see it's got a funny arm that sticks out on the northern side, formerly known as the Caprivi Strip, more modernly known as the Zambezi province. And then it comes into Botswana and spreads out into the fingers of the Okavango Delta, creating many different homes and ecosystems, niches for different animals. And this is taken from a helicopter, and this is mainly Kidra Lagoon, home to hundreds of thousands of different bird species that occur in that area that one could view. We also get out by means of dugout canoe, mokoros, and motorboats to explore this incredibly unique delta system. This is what it looks like in the summer months, which is quite odd because you've got these massive floodplains that during the peak of the floods would be underwater. But you can see the area and around it is, as these emergent grasses grow with all the rain, it's nice and green, it's lush, and it provides a home and a food source to many animals. So it's a very exciting time of the year to come during our summer for those bird lovers. All your inter-African migrants are around, all your Palearctic migrants, inter-African migrants, they're all back, and it's a feeding frenzy because nature is providing so much food. It's the Garden of Eden during the wet season. It's great for photography, great backlighting, and you know, having a lion or something walking through that green grass, photographing that is just absolutely epic. These are some of the shots that I think portray the Delta the best. We've got semi-aquatic antelope species like your red leche that leap through the waters of the Okavango Delta, creating some great photographic opportunities. These animals have adapted to living in these conditions with the arrival of the water, where they survive by going through the water, and we're lucky enough. That's actually a road that you're looking at. We're actually driving a Land Rover down that road. We are. It's almost like a submarine, and we got to shoot off one of these shots, which was quite great. Hippopotamus, of course, play a major role in opening up channels and gateways. We refer to them as ecosystem engineers. Without these guys, the Delta waters wouldn't be able to go as far as they do. During the wet season, these guys traverse those water channels and basically disturb the plant matter that might be starting to clog up the system and allow for the water to go much further. So this guy had something to say, you know, and we were able to shoot off a couple shots there. But these are some of the unique things about the dry season. I mean, look at that, the painted wolves of Africa, the second most endangered carnivore species in Africa. And at this time of the year, during the wet season, it's a really good time to look out for these, with the abundance of impala young, warthog babies, and zebras. These guys just go wild. They are one of the most successful hunting predators out there. They hunt by tiring their prey species out over large distances, huge amounts of stamina, those big ears that they've got. They're about the size of a German Shepherd, have huge stamina in the pack. They work in very similar ways to your wolves down here, where it's an alpha male and female system. So when they're out of the den and the young are at about 6 months to a year old, they start running with the rest of the pack. And this was taken in the green season. So the green season does provide as good wildlife viewing as in the dry season, and even better for photography, of course. Look how green that shot is. Wow, the Kalahari, the black maned lions of the Kalahari. I mean, this was a shot taken many years ago. I took this in the central Kalahari, and I think it's just such an iconic image that portrays the Kalahari. I mean, those black and white facial markings of the oryx and those black-maned lions. I mean, in the Kalahari, it's a recessive gene during the wet season. The Kalahari comes to life as flowers and grasses and everything starts to bloom. So do bullfrogs and geckos and chameleons. Everybody comes out. But amongst all of that, one could possibly be lucky enough to see this recessive gene of the big black-maned lions of the Kalahari. Huh? Yeah, the Okavango. Animals adapting to waterways, the leopards in those areas. 6 shots after this one, we just had the muzzle of this cat out of the water as she crossed from island to island, and you can see the reflections there. Early morning light. So we will be, when you do come on safari, we will be getting you up at the crack of dawn. You'll feel like chasing us away, but we'll be knock at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we'll sit around a bushfire, and you'll tell stories about what you heard last night and the hippos, and everybody will be very excited. And after a quick cup of tea and some continental breakfast, we jump on those Land Rovers, and that's what gives us the opportunity to possibly see these guys in action. And that's why we get you up so bright and early in the morning. So please look forward to that, hearing my voice. Knock, knock. This is saddle-billed storks in the Okavango Delta. Again, a picture that for me portrays the Delta. You've got saddle-billed storks, you've got red nature, these big open floodplains. It says Okavango. It's written all over it. Yeah, so please do come on safari and join us. Get into these dugout canoes, which is the local ways and the authentic way that the local river bushmen of the Okavango Delta used to get around, by means of dugout canoe or mokoro, that could travel through fairly short, fairly shallow waters, get up close to prey species that they may have been hunting, and they would also use it for cutting reeds and thatching grass, and also going fishing. These are 2 guests that were on safari. They look like they're having a great time. Well, they were. It's hard not to out there. It's an amazing area, the Okavango. And we'll pull you around and we'll look at some of the smaller things that one can quite easily miss from a Land Rover. Things like painted reed frogs and long reed frogs, and yeah, and explore the Delta for what it really is. The crystal clear waters of the Okavango Delta, papyrus, palm trees, big elephants shaking the palm trees to get to the nuts. It's an amazing sight to see, and yeah, that's what the Delta offers. This is a crocodile that's along the Chobe River, just taking out his breakfast. Also something one could possibly see out there. And of course, a species that's very, very, very close to our hearts, a species that unfortunately has declined over many years due to poaching, due to irresponsible human behavior, and of course due to certain communities that believe that the horn has medicinal beliefs and can cure chronic diseases and is used as aphrodisiacs and all sorts of weird beliefs out there. And this is a species that we hope in times to come we'll be able to show you in the Delta, as we are very heavily involved in reintroducing these species into the Okavango Delta that once occurred there. This is a young white rhino calf. This is one of the shots of a lifetime for me. This cat was at Kijua Camp, which is situated in the heart of the Delta. I was shooting with a 100-400. I was leaning back in my chair, and this cat basically put her face in my lens. I mean, that doesn't happen all the time. I was speechless, which is hard to come by when it comes to me, because I talk quite a bit. But this was an amazing and incredibly unique sighting, to have this cat that close and that relaxed. And we were lucky enough to shoot off a few shots of this leopard in a tree. Thank you, and upwards and onwards.
Okay, well, this is Lee back with you, and we have some questions from our audience members. And our most popular question, as you can imagine, is about the comparison between the dry season and the wet season. And the specific question is, what months comprise the dry season versus the wet season?
So the months that the wet season starts off in November. Typically, the rains start in November, and they'll go November, December, January, February, right through to April. The end of April is typically the end of the rainy season. But like we said before, you know, it's never raining all day. It's late afternoon, thunder showers, and it's 2 or 3 hours. And then it's a really gorgeous and spectacular time to go out after those and go, yeah.
All right. And for those of our listeners who are interested in traveling in the summer, we have some specific requests for traveling in late June, July, maybe middle August. Wondering what sort of weather and climate one could expect during that time of the year.
Oh yeah, with that one, as I've said before, the dry season normally we don't get cloud cover, so our days are normally just clear skies, and it might be chilly around that time from May, June, July. July being the coldest month within that period. So it should be comfortable for people that come from the west. But for us back in Botswana, it would be very chilly for us. Anything less than 40 degrees Fahrenheit is very cold for us. So I believe for everyone who's going to be traveling around that time, it'd be perfect time. Great chances for seeing good game viewing and a lot of interaction amongst most of the predators and the prey species that we get up there.
All right, thank you. Well, I was going to ask you a question about traveling in the dry season and what the advantages might be, but I think you've just covered that. Is there anything else that you would add to the benefits of traveling during the dry season?
June, July, just don't as a traveler, please do not just overread the part where you think, I'm going to Africa and it's going to be warm. June, July is our winter. And for many people from the northern parts, you sort of think, well, African winters aren't so bad. When you're out there in an open game viewer, that pre-departure booklet will come in use in terms of what to bring. So beanies, gloves, hats, everything that you would think you wouldn't need in Africa, you will need during June, July, because it does get pretty cold out there, as Lemmy was saying. Huh?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. That's great advice. We have several listeners who are interested in photography, and we have some specific questions about that. One question here: if I brought my SLR, what would be the best lens to bring along? Could I bring just one, or would you suggest 2 lenses?
Oh yeah. But being in Botswana is actually one of the good places ever, because we are in private areas where you are able to get closer to your the animals that you want to photograph, your prey species or the predators. So anything from 100 to 400 or 72 to 200, f2.8, f4. Those are proper lenses that you can bring, and then obviously the wide lens for landscape. So maybe if you're able to get 2 bodies and then the 2 lenses, then you're perfect to go. But also the ones that have got point and shoot cameras, that's also perfect equipment to use out there. No need to carry tripods or monopods on the Land Rover. We also provide, Natural Habitat does provide bin bags for stabilization when you're taking your shots out on drives. Unless if maybe you want to photograph stars, because during the dry season, that's the time when you get to see a lot of the African night skies. So then you might need a tripod, which for a few of our photographic departures, we carry tripods, monopods with us. So for the lens, basically those 2 that I've mentioned.
Oh, all right. Thank you. And there's a question about walking tours. Do you conduct walking tours?
Yeah, we do conduct walking tours. We limited to the dry season though, mainly due to the fact that in the wet season the grass is so long. Visibility, of course, is the #1 thing out there in terms of safety. We've got to be able to see what's around us when we're walking. So the dry season, the grass is sort of fallen, and it's a lot shorter. You can see a lot further in the bush, so you don't get any unwanted surprises, you see. So we tend to do those mainly in the dry season. We tend to get up fairly early in the morning, and we'll do an early morning walk and a late afternoon walk. During the middle of the day, there's just too much elephant activity to and from the river. So it's normally early morning and late afternoon, which work well. And then, you know, for those, we'd advise people to bring comfortable walking shoes, neutral colors, try and blend in as much with the bush as possible. So we try and stay away from the whites and the yellows and the bright oranges. We stick to the greens and browns and sort of duller colors so we can fit into the bush. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So for those who are birders, folks who are interested in seeing birds, how plentiful are the birds?
Best time for that it would be from the start of the rains. A lot of our migrants, they start to come in around October, so going forward. So by December, we probably would have almost all of our migrants around the Linyenti, the Okavango, not forgetting the Kalahari, which that's the place where you get a lot of raptors. So if you ever go that way, you're going to be seeing a lot of raptors up until around about March, April, they start to migrate back. So around those times, those would be perfect times for you to come and do birding, which you can spend days out to see how many birds you can see. I've gone out on one full day just to count birds. I've gone up to 150, 180. So it's a good time around that period.
All right. And for those interested in seeing rhinos, is it possible to see rhinos in Okavango?
Yeah. On our departures, on the natural habitat departures, in terms of the secluded Botswana, the Kalahari Delta and beyond trips and the epic Botswanas, we tend to see them in the beginning and not in Botswana, but in Tokolea, or out of Tokolea or out of the River Club. In Zambia, there's a small national park called Musiwatunya National Park. Typically, if you've got a 2-night stay, we would take you out, and we've got an amazing little activity where we can actually go out by vehicle into Musiwatunya National Park, look for tracks and look for signs, and then we can get the guests off the vehicle, and we will walk and try and find the rhinos and foot, and a very, very high success rate on that, probably 99% success rate on that. So that's probably one of the best places to see rhinos. At the moment, in northern Botswana, the only place that does have rhinos, thanks to wilderness safaris, there's been a reintroduction of black and white rhinos onto Chief's Island, which is in the heart of the Okavango Delta. So one would have to be incredibly lucky to see any of those moving through the Delta.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, I will stop there, and we will review the other questions that were submitted and get some answers back personally if we were not able to ask your question on the air. Today we will, as I said, review those and get back with you with an answer. So let me stop now with the question and answer, and I will turn it back over to you, Lemmy and Tuto, for closing comments.
In terms of closing, you know, we named a few safaris throughout Botswana. For those first-time travelers, having done this for a while now, I would highly suggest the slightly longer trip, which is the secluded Botswana trip, especially during the dry season. Whereas in the wet season, a good itinerary would be the Kalahari Delta and beyond. In terms of Zimbabwe and Zambia, that Hidden Jewels of Zimbabwe and Zambia is also an incredible trip for one to go on.
Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, for the new travels, just to add on top of that, just make sure, just pay more attention to the booklets that are provided by the natural habitat, and then read more, or just to have an insight. A lot of our travelers always, yeah, they come in with an idea of what's going on. But otherwise, the 2 seasons, they're both good anytime, any day. So we look forward to seeing you out in the Botswana side.
Well, gentlemen, thank you both so much. It's just been a pleasure hearing from you today. We thank you for taking the time. And to our audience, if you missed any part of our webinar or would just like to review what we've shared today, we will send all of you an email with the link to the replay, so you will be able to enjoy that again. And if you have other questions, you've got our contact information there on the screen. We encourage you to give us a call so that we can help you with any other questions you might have. And with that, we will say good day and conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everyone.